before, Tom Petty sang about running down a dream. Steven Tyler, Aerosmith, sang about Dream On. Dreaming is a huge part of life. And then there's Queensryche, Silent Lucidity, but that's a whole different type of dreaming. And but we're going to talk about running down a dream, or as I call it, so about that dream. Now I have a picture here of the start of what? The Eiffel Tower, absolutely. There were 3 architects that had a dream to build this. I will not even attempt to pronounce their names. You can look them up because it's very French. And so I'm not going to attempt, but I thought this was so cool. This started as some kid that used to play with Legos, I'm sure. Because here it is coming together, this thing, the Eiffel Tower. And I love this picture because it just shows how mammoth it is. Because right up here, you can see one guy. You know, it's like, wow. Has anyone ever seen the Eiffel Tower in person? You have, Mary? Okay. It's awe-inspiring. It's like the Statue of Liberty, just like, wow, somebody came up with this whole thing. And this is like Legos or an erector set on steroids. But a guy came up.
Actually, the same architect that designed the Eiffel Tower had a piece
In the Statue of Liberty, yep. And so this guy had dreams in his head. And I thought, what a great illustration as we talk about dreaming, because all of us have things that we're believing for. I'm quite confident of that. There's never a stop in our life where we stop believing, dreaming for something. You know, whether you're a little kid, we just did the birthday thing yesterday with my kids, rented out the rec center and had a lot of fun. And they were believing, they were dreaming for some things, and some things they got, some things they didn't, but they're going to keep dreaming and hoping for those things. As you get older, you start dreaming for, you're in middle school and you're like, I want that homeroom next year. And you're hoping for it, you're dreaming for it. When you're in high school, I want to talk to that guidance counselor. As you're a senior, you're thinking about jobs and where you're going to go. Are you going to do a tech school? Are you going to do a university? Are you just going to go right into the workforce? All admirable, by the way. You know, that these things. And we never stop dreaming. My dad's up, and yesterday we were believing for a good apartment for him, you know, and so there never is a point where we stop dreaming. And I want to talk about that today because something that we want to accomplish is something that we're dreaming about. And we can feel it so strongly, but not just as an adult, but as a kid, we experience setbacks, things that life has a way of pushing down our dreams and what God has placed in our heart. There was a thing, now I realize Wapaka has something called the Fine Arts Festival, but in the Assembly of God movement, in each state, there's also a thing called the Fine Arts Festival. Somebody copied somebody, I'm just joking. But it's literally for high schoolers to enroll in something that they want to do and potentially win a scholarship for, whether it's graphic design or poetry or human videos or you know, singing, solo, short sermon, all of these things. And I remember one year I didn't know what I was going to do, and it was kind of like the pressure was on in youth group to do that, and so I enrolled in 5 things, and let's just say I was good in a couple, one I excelled in, and the rest I shouldn't even have done it. Okay, one was the male vocal, awful. Then the next one was short sermon. I did okay with that. I actually got a 1 point less than superior. If you get superior, then you go on to nationals. Human video, just because I liked the girl in the group. And then I was a teenage boy. Come on. Confessions, scandalous. Anyways. But the one I excelled in was graphic design. I enrolled my piece, and that was like the coolest one because you just send in your piece. You don't have to deal with judges or anything. And it's a total introvert artist's dream. And I sent it in, and they said, this is the best piece of the day. Here you go, scholarship, all of that stuff. And it was a dream. It was a dream that came true, and I knew where I was wanting to go with that and the short sermon, and it propelled me. But as you get older, you start experiencing these setbacks. But just because you may have even given up on these dreams because of the setbacks doesn't mean God gave up on those dreams. And that's the good news that I want to talk about, is that whatever that dream was in your life that you dreamed of as a little boy or a little girl or as a young adult, the fact is, the good news is that that dream is still alive. That dream is still alive in there somewhere. Remember what God promised you. For a lot of people, they can remember that defining moment when God put something in their life, a dream of theirs that they wanted someday. Remember what he whispered to you in the middle of the night when he said, I want you to. Or I've given you a passion to. And maybe that dream was high and lofty, maybe it was somewhat attainable, but regardless, God put that little whisper in your ear and said, this is what I want for you. Or maybe we went to God and said, this is what I want to do. That's okay too. The Bible says, make your prayers and petitions known before God. And so that means I have a right as a son to a Heavenly Father to say, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to accomplish. I can promise you that all the way up till the senior year, things were peaches and cream. And then you graduate high school, and even then, that window's pretty good. But then you start hitting that age where you're like, okay, you're too old for the youth group, and if you stick around, you're creeper. More so the guys. The girls, it's like no big deal. But then you have the college age, and then when you start aging out of the college age, and you're like, okay, this is real life now. This is, okay, where am I going? What am I doing? I remember being 22 years old, and I knew I wanted to become a youth pastor, but I didn't realize that at 22 years old, that's when I would start. I was simply helping out in the youth group as a youth, what they would call a youth sponsor. And I was DJing a Christian skate night, which we only wanted to do once a month. We rented the place out. And then eventually they said, we want you to do it every Friday night from 9 to midnight for our normal crowd. And so we did that. And out of there, some guy comes up behind me and pulls on my shirt. And he's like, I heard you're going to Correspondence Bible School. Yeah. He goes, I need a youth pastor. And I turn around. I'm like, this is Bob. You really don't want me. But no, ultimately, that's how I went into ministry. He just asked me, he goes, can we do an interview? And we'd love to have you. And that's where I was for the first 8 years of being a pastor. I stayed at that church. But the scripture calls it secret petitions of our heart. In Psalms chapter 37, 3-5, it says, trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Every voice tells you in life, it's not going to happen. What's your dream? You're going to do that? What? And it starts beating you up, thinking about your background, who you are, mistakes you've made, your education level. Life has a way of pushing you down. But God is saying, what I promised you, I'm still going to do. I spoke it to you. It may not have happened yet, but I am true to my word. And to get ready, because it's on its way if you trust in him. What that dream is something that needs to happen. Good for you, by the way. That's good.
We're working on potty.
Hey, I want to start that phase. I'm trying with Noah. It ain't happening with a boy. It's much harder with a boy. But don't let circumstances talk you out of it. Don't let it happen. Because the fact is, what are you remembering? The dream you had that hasn't maybe quite come to pass, what are you remembering? The past hurts, the past failures, the things that didn't work out? Turn it around and remember and remember your dream. What God has put in your heart, what did you used to be excited about? I often say that. I made a little image once. It was my profile picture on Facebook. It was my 18-year-old graduation self next to my current self. I was kind of inspired to do one of those photos because there's a photo set that's out there of like a young Paul McCartney with an old Paul McCartney, and there's just a lot of cool images like that. So I decided to make one for myself. But I think about that often, like, if I could sit down with the 16-year-old version of myself, would he look at me and say, awesome, you're doing it really good? Or would he want to take me out to the bike rack after school and have a few words with me? That's where we used to settle our differences in middle school. I'll see you at the bike rack. And in church world, we'd call that the laying on of hands. So, but it's one of these things that, where are we at? What are we doing? Turn it around and remember your dream. Because what God's put in your heart and what you used to be excited about, it's still there. It may need to restart. It may need a little rebirthing. It may need somebody to sit down with you and say, you absolutely can do this. Absolutely, you can do this. It may have taken a detour in life. That's what I love about Siri. I don't want it to go into that mode. But I can, because as soon as you say it, speak the name. It's like Beetlejuice. But you literally can say, take me here, but if I go off course as life goes, the famous words is rerouting or taking you a different way. Okay, now turn around and do this. And that's how God is with our lives and our dreams. Okay, I went that way. I shouldn't have. I realize it. But God's up there saying, okay, rerouting. We can still get there. Take a left here. Okay, and we go that way. One person said this: every time you say, Lord, thank you for bringing it to pass, you're removing some dirt. You're digging it back out. Maybe you've struggled with an illness for a long time. Early on, you believed you could get well, but now it's been years and you're just learning to live with it. God is moved by our faith. Without a doubt, I believe that. God is absolutely moved by our faith. He's not moved by our discouragement. He's not moved by our complaining. When once in Scripture did we read, and Jonah then left God's plan for his life and instead went to Tarshish instead of Nineveh, and God was very moved by Noah's complaining? It just doesn't happen. Nowhere do you say, and God had compassion on Noah. No, on Jonah. No, in fact, he's like, okay, go. It's like any good father would. You really want to try to parachute off of that? Okay, you really want to try to jump off that cliff? Okay, go for it. See what happens, for their kids. And it happens, and he falls, and he gets hurt, and you're like, okay, am I the only father that's done this? Okay. The only parent, literally, you really want to do this? Okay. You want to buy that. You really want to buy it. Okay, you're going to be bored with it in 1 hour after you get it. Emma did that. She had this unicorn. Maybe the girls in the group could help me. It's like a star lily unicorn that works with an app. Wings flap. It's like a total animation sort of thing. But I'm like, Emma, you really don't want this for Christmas. You really don't. Yeah, I do. Okay. Well, she ended up getting it. And sure enough, before even New Year's Eve hit, done. It was gone. $100. It's like, wow. She still has it in her room, but it's an animatronic unicorn Pegasus. Okay. But I think that's how God is with us. Okay, have at it. Let's see what happens. And we fall, we fumble, we brush ourselves off. We even get up and, we even get up and it's kind of like that for those of us that remember Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He wipes out on the bike in front of the kids and he gets up. He's like, I meant to do that. That sort of thing. And God's sitting there like, no, you didn't. I can read right through that. But he's not moved by that. Start remembering your dream. Start saying, Father, thank you that dream's still in me, that I still think about it. That dream would not be in there if you didn't wake up every morning or every week and it just something tripped your trigger and you remembered it and it was still there. Some keep putting more dirt on their dreams, and it starts in our thinking, in what you're believing, in what we're saying, that buries that dream. This is what Caleb did. Caleb, he and Joshua in the Old Testament went and spied out the promised land. They came back and told Moses in Numbers 13:33, we saw the Nephilim. Ooh, I love this study. If you ever get bored with the Bible, and you shouldn't, but if you do, study the Nephilim. Ooh. Remember the version of Noah that Kurt Russell did a couple of years ago? And we were all creeped out by the rock monsters? Okay? It was a little off base, but at the same time, think about this. Because they're speaking in literal terms here. He says, we saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. Okay, that just enter the whole J.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter world there, because that study right there is going to send you down that rabbit hole really quick. I digress, though. But he comes back and he's saying, we saw the Nephilim there. We seemed like grasshoppers in our eyes. We looked the same to them. He's talking about the promised land. But the other 10 spies came back and said just the opposite. They talked Moses out of it. You don't want to go there. It's scary. It's not good. I know this is a dream of yours, Moses, but ain't happening. I can imagine that Caleb was disappointed. He was discouraged. 45 years later, At the age of 85, Caleb could still feel that dream stirring on the inside. At 85 years old, he wasn't sitting around feeling sorry for himself. In fact, in Joshua chapter 14, 10 through 12 says, "Now then," I love that. You know it's down to brass tacks when he starts off the verse saying, "Now then, just as the Lord promised, he has kept me alive for 45 years since the time he said this to Moses, while Israel moved about in the wilderness. So here I am today, 85 years old. I am still as strong as the day Moses sent me out. I'm just as vigorous to go out to the battle now as I was then. Now give me this hill country that the Lord promised me that day. You yourself heard then that the Anakites were there and their cities were large and fortified, but the Lord helping me, I will drive them out just as he said." I can hear a friend say this, "Come on, Caleb. You're 85. And you just asked the Lord to give you that country that you were promised 45 years ago. Can you say dementia?" But no, Caleb was dead serious. He said, "This is the land God promised me." There was this dream still stirring in his life. At one time, perhaps you and I, we believed we could do something great. And I'll be honest, I hear a lot of stories about people that may have to end up switching churches, or somebody that comes to Radiant and we hear right away, that person there, you want them to lead the youth group. That person right there, you want. And then they come and they were probably phenomenal in another role, but then they come and we're getting going. It's like, cue the Price is Right losing horn. Dun, 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 brr. And I sit back and I start wondering what happened. I don't doubt that the person was phenomenal in their role as a youth worker, as a children's pastor, as a so-and-so, whatever the case may be. But something or some ongoing situations push that person down and kick the dirt on them so much that dream is hidden. But God's saying to you what he said to Caleb, go back and try again. Because quite honestly, this is your time. 85 years old. And God's sending Caleb out to try something new, a promise that was promised to him 45 years earlier. What you gave up on, what maybe I've given up on, God didn't. He would have never spoken that to us if he wanted us to give up on something. In fact, Jeremiah chapter 20 verse 9 says, "But if I say I will not mention his word or speak anymore in his name, his word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot." It may not have happened the first time. It may not have happened the second time. But Jeremiah is saying those words are like fire shut up in my bones. They got to get out. They have to get out. I have to do this. I have to pursue this. What God started, he's going to finish. Look at Joseph. Look at Jonah. Look at Moses. Look at Paul. Look at Jesus. Let's just draw a name from the Bible. When there's a dream there, it's going to happen. The bottom line is this. The enemy targets people who have dreams. He just does. If we're complacent and we don't want to grow in our job, we don't want to grow as a parent, we don't want to grow as a person, the enemy's happy. In fact, we really are helping him out. But when you have a dream, and you want to go for that promotion, you want to start that job, you want to start a business, you want to do a career change, you want to become a better parent, you want to, whatever the case may be, the fact is, you have the enemy's full attention. That's why it can be a struggle at times. This is something that Rick and I learned at youth conventions growing up. We were at a lot of youth conventions growing up. We just didn't know each other back in Milwaukee. But I will say there was a lot of sensationalism. There was a lot of hype going on at those things. But I will say the thing that was always spot on is when you have a dream, when you have a passion, when you have an encounter with God, you get excited. God's super excited, but there's somebody else that's very excited and worked up as well. And that's the enemy. And that's why we don't see our dreams happen. Because he will do everything in his power to derail you. You want a job promotion? Well, guess what? Monday's going to be a trudge for you. But you keep pushing on. You want that marriage? You want that relationship? That's great. But you can expect things to be a bumpy road until we get worked out. And then there's the other side of it. Maybe it's not even the enemy attacking. Maybe we go back to the biblical model that God's the gardener. And he prunes those that are going to grow in him. I hear there's people in this church that like wine. Just putting it out there. It's a joke, of course there are. There's like 30. But but if you go to a vineyard in Door County, I guarantee you that verse comes alive. There's an owner of a winery in Stevens Point, very nice one, and the owner was actually here to talk about vineyards and wine and all of that one Sunday a couple of years ago. And it brought that scripture alive that if the vines are going to grow, if the vineyard's going to grow, you got to cut off the old stuff. And sometimes that's God just saying, hey, okay, we're going to start pruning a little bit because there's something big coming up in your future. But when God puts the bottom line is that the enemy targets those who have a dream. Here's the key. You wouldn't be having opposition if you didn't have something great in you. Is that safe to say? You simply wouldn't have opposition if there wasn't something great in you. When you're a dreamer, you're dangerous to the enemy. He knows there's nothing he can do to stop you. The forces that are for you, as Scripture, are greater than those that are against you. Scripture goes on to say so many things about this. No weapon formed against us shall prosper. But when God puts a dream in your heart, when he gives you a promise, it doesn't mean that it's going to come to pass with no opposition, no delays, no adversity. Because then there's a lot of character that gets built up in those moments. There will be things that you don't understand. There are things that I don't understand. Growing up started off as a 22-year-old pastor, I thought you're on staff at a church. The church I grew up at, it was the picture of stability. Granted, I wasn't in on all the business meetings and things like that. But then I got hired on as a church, and I'm like, this is the euphoric world. I'm hired on as a church. What could possibly go wrong, right, Mary? And we all just laugh. Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. And then 8 years later, things came crashing down. We got accepted into a new position. Didn't apply anywhere. We had 3 positions on the table. We came back in, and all of a sudden, 1 year later, what could possibly go wrong? We're in Wapaka, the city where I gave my heart to the Lord when I was 9 years old. The city we'd come up to for summer camp. What could go wrong? And then it happened again. But then through all of that, God said, you're going to be living your dream here very soon and pastoring a church. Had to walk through some stuff. Some things I think God wanted in my life to prune me for these things, but other things God just redeemed because they weren't of him. He allowed them, but they weren't of him, and therefore it made me a stronger person. We all have those stories. We all have those stories in our life. But you'll have plenty of opportunities to get negative if you want. But we have to do our part. We have to dare to trust him. Do you dare to trust him? Push the cynicism aside. Push the doubt aside. Say, God, that dream that's still down in there, I'm going to trust you with this. I'm going to dare to believe him. And I'm going to let him fight the battles for me. I'm going to let him be the vindicator for me as I move forward to pursue this dream that he's placed in my life. And that means we do our part. It means saying no. It means saying yes. It means being very intentional about where you want to go in life. But we need to do that if God's really giving you that dream. Do you have a dream in your life? Do you have something in there that you want to see come to fruition? If you need help, if you need someone to chat with, I'm always available. But start asking God, God, show me what that is. Help me get to that point. And it may be a year, maybe tomorrow, whatever the timeline is God has for you to be able to pursue that. Because it's still there, it's from God.